Welcome to our deep dive, into Iris Business Services Limited.
Okay.
They're making waves in the world of regulatory and compliance technology.
Yeah.
And they're based in India and have this fascinating collect, create, consume model.
Interesting.
And they work with both companies and regulators. So
Yay.
ready to unpack all this.
Yeah, absolutely. Iris isn't just providing software. They're kind of building an ecosystem around regulatory data. They're helping organizations navigate this increasingly complex world of compliance.
So it's like they're the architects of a smoother, more efficient regulatory landscape.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We've got a stack of their annual reports and earnings calls here.
Great.
So we're going to be looking for those economic moats, those sustainable advantages.
Yeah.
That could make them a real player in the long run.
Exactly. Even if you're not an investor,
Right.
Understanding how a company like Iris tackles these challenges can give you a glimpse into the future of business.
Yep.
Yeah.
And regulation.
For sure. Okay, so let's start with a look at the sector that Iris plays in regtech. What kind of winds are blowing in this space, both good and bad?
Well, the global shift towards stricter regulatory compliance and digital reporting, that's a massive tailwind for regtech companies like Iris.
Okay.
Think about it. Regulations are getting more complex, data is exploding, and companies need help keeping up.
Yeah.
That's where regtech comes in.
It's almost like a perfect storm brewing.
Yeah.
Creating this huge demand. But you mentioned headwinds too, right?
Indeed, a global economic slowdown could make companies hesitant to invest in new tech, even if it could save them money in the long run.
Yeah.
And Iris has specifically mentioned the risk of partners taking solutions in-house, especially in the UK market.
Okay.
They've seen instances where they help the partner develop a solution and then the partner just decides to go it alone.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's got to sting a bit, but it also speaks to the value that Iris is bringing, right?
If other people are trying to replicate it.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this sector with huge potential, but also some real challenges.
Right.
Now let's zoom in on Iris's different business segments and see where the growth opportunities lie, starting with the collect part of their model.
Yeah, their recent Q4 2024 earnings call highlighted their project with the South African Reserve Bank, which is about 35% complete.
Right.
Iris is providing its iFile platform and automated data software to help the bank modernize how it collects and manages regulatory data.
Okay.
What's fascinating is Iris sees this as a potential blueprint for deposit insurance systems globally.
So they're not just solving a problem.
Yeah.
They're potentially creating a global standard. That's a pretty savvy move. Now, what about the create segment where they help companies generate those complex reports?
Yeah, even without major new global regulations driving demand, they've shown consistent growth here, indicating they're winning market share. A key focus is converting existing customers to their flagship product, Carbon, which is a cloud-based collaborative authoring solution.
But switching software can be a hassle.
Yeah.
What's their secret sauce for convincing companies to make the leap to Carbon?
They're emphasizing the tangible benefits of Carbon, quantifying how it saves clients time and money, and showcasing testimonials from companies who've already made the switch.
Okay.
Essentially, they're letting their happy customers do the talking.
Smart move. People trust real-world experiences.
Okay.
Okay. And lastly, the intriguing consume segment where they hint at data monetization. What's the story there?
It's still early days.
Okay.
But they have these things called data APIs, which allow other systems to tap into their vast data resources. For example, they mention data APIs for lenders, which could help assess credit risk more effectively.
Right.
They also have the Iris Peridot app with a massive user base focused on GST compliance in India.
So they're sitting on a potential goldmine of data. And even though the app is free, it positions them as experts and opens up those data API opportunities.
Right.
It's like giving away a taste to whet the appetite. So they've got these three interconnected businesses, each with its own growth trajectory. Right. Now let's get down to the numbers. What do their financials tell us?
In their FY24 annual report, they boasted a 37% revenue growth.
Wow.
With the collect segment surging by 70%.
Wow.
Their profit before tax nearly doubled, and their EBITDA margin, a measure of profitability, increased to a healthy 15.4%.
Those are some seriously impressive gains, but we need to go beyond the headlines, right? What about those key financial ratios and KPIs that give us a deeper understanding of their financial health?
Yeah, one important metric is the gearing ratio,
Okay.
which measures a company's debt relative to its equity. Iris's gearing ratio dropped to 0.17 in FY23, which means they're relying less on debt to finance their operations.
So they're not building their growth on a shaky foundation of borrowed money.
Right.
Which is a good sign. What else should we be paying attention to?
Their PANTLA, or profit after tax, jumped significantly from H101 lakh in FY22 to H429 lakh in FY23.
Okay.
This tells us they're not just growing, they're becoming more profitable.
Okay, so they're ticking the boxes on profitability. What about the other elements of our fundamental checklist, like their operating dynamics? How efficiently are they running their business?
Their expense management seems to be in good shape.
Okay.
They've kept their costs slightly below the pace of revenue growth, indicating they're not letting spending get out of control.
That's a relief. Nobody likes a company that burns through cash recklessly. And speaking of cash, what about their cash flow and debt situation?
In FY24, they managed to reduce their debt and improve their cash conversion cycle.
Okay.
Meaning they're getting better at turning sales into actual cash. This is crucial for any company, especially one aiming for rapid growth.
So they're generating cash and using it wisely. That's a big check mark on our list.
Yeah.
And lastly, on the fundamental front, what about their growth potential? Do they have what it takes to keep this momentum going?
Well, their strong revenue growth and their active efforts to secure funding for future expansion suggest they have significant growth potential.
Okay.
They're clearly not content to rest on their laurels.
So they're ambitious, and they've got the track record to back it up. That's promising. But a company is only as good as its management, right? Let's move on to our management checklist and see how Iris's leadership stacks up. First up, any skeletons in the closet, any negative news we should be aware of?
Well, their FY23 annual report does acknowledge a history of slower growth and lackluster stock performance in previous years.
Okay.
However, management attributes this to their focus on building a solid foundation for long-term value creation, rather than chasing short-term gains.
Okay, so they're playing the long game.
Yeah.
But some investors might be skeptical, given that past performance. How are they addressing those concerns and convincing the market that they're on the right track now?
They're emphasizing their recent successes, their strong financial performance, and their commitment to innovation.
Okay.
They're also highlighting their disciplined approach to spending and their ability to expand without relying heavily on external funding.
So they're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Right.
That's reassuring. What about their track record with cash flow generation?
Yeah.
We already touched on this in the financials, but it's worth another look from a management perspective.
Absolutely. As we saw, they've strengthened their cash conversion cycle.
Yeah.
Which demonstrates their ability to effectively manage working capital and translate sales into cash.
Okay.
This suggests a financially savvy management team.
Good to know. Nobody wants to see a company bleeding cash. What about their overall financial discipline? Are they making responsible decisions and allocating resources wisely?
You know, their focus on specialization over generalization, their aversion to unnecessary spending, and their ability to expand without massive capital infusions all point to a disciplined and prudent approach to managing the company's finances.
So they're not throwing money at every shiny new opportunity that comes along.
Right.
They're being strategic and thoughtful.
Exactly.
And finally, any red flags regarding related party transactions, those can sometimes be a cause for concern.
Well, their annual report clearly states that all related party transactions have been conducted at arm's length and in accordance with the company's policy. This transparency is a positive sign.
Okay, so they're being upfront and accountable. That's what we like to see. Now let's talk about valuation. How does Iris compare to its peers, and what's their approach to determining the company's worth?
This is where it gets interesting, because Iris is the only listed player in India's regtech space.
Okay.
There aren't any direct comparables in the Indian market.
Got it.
This makes it trickier to benchmark them against their peers.
So how do they figure out what they're worth without those direct comparisons? What's their valuation philosophy?
From their earnings calls, we know that management isn't keen on selling at a low value.
Okay.
They believe the company's intrinsic value is higher than what the market might currently reflect.
So they're confident in their future prospects and believe the market will eventually recognize their true worth.
Right.
But with no direct comparables, what gives them this confidence? Are they just being overly optimistic?
Their confidence seems to stem from their strong track record, their market leadership in certain areas, and their belief in the future growth potential of the regtech sector. They're also actively pursuing new opportunities and investing in innovation, which they believe will further enhance their value.
So they're not just sitting back. and waiting for the market to catch up. They're actively working to build a stronger, more valuable company, but they can't ignore the market conditions entirely, right?
Of course not. They acknowledge the challenging global economic environment, but emphasize their resilience and ability to continue growing despite these headwinds.
Okay, so they're aware of the challenges, but believe they can navigate them successfully. But in this ever-evolving tech landscape, even the best companies need a strong defense against competition.
Right.
What are Iris's economic moats? What gives them a sustainable competitive advantage?
That's the key question, isn't it? What makes Iris stand out from the crowd and potentially fend off competitors? Let's delve into that.
Sounds good to me. This is where it gets really interesting.
One of their biggest moats is their pioneering position in the regtech space.
Okay.
You know, remember they were early adopters of XBRL, which is essentially a standardized language for business reporting.
Right.
Makes it easier for companies to communicate financial data.
Yeah.
And this first mover advantage has allowed them to build expertise and establish themselves as leaders in the field.
So it's like they were speaking fluent XBRL.
Yeah.
Before most companies even knew the alphabet existed.
Exactly.
That's a pretty powerful advantage, especially as regulations become more complex and globalized.
Precisely. And their unique collect, create, consume model itself acts as a barrier to entry, offering this comprehensive solution that covers the entire regulatory data lifecycle, makes it difficult for competitors to replicate.
It's like they've built a fortress around regulatory data,
Yeah.
offering a one-stop shop for all your compliance needs. But even fortresses need to be maintained and updated, right? What are some potential weaknesses or threats that could chip away at these moats?
Well, we've already touched on their historical struggles with slow growth and the risk of partners going in-house. But beyond that, the competitive landscape is always shifting.
Right.
New players can emerge with disruptive technologies.
Sure.
Existing competitors are constantly innovating.
So it's a bit like a game of chess.
Yeah.
Always anticipating the next move. What else should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, the increasing automation of regulatory processes is a double-edged sword.
How so?
On one hand, it could make Iris's solutions even more valuable by streamlining compliance tasks.
Okay.
But on the other hand, if companies can automate everything themselves, they might need less help from Iris.
So they need to embrace automation, but also stay ahead of the curve, ensuring their solutions offer something unique that can't be easily replaced by a robot.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about the data monetization aspect? We touched on this earlier, but it feels like there are some big questions there, both in terms of opportunity and risk.
Yeah. You're right. The consume segment holds huge potential. But also raises ethical and practical concerns.
Sure.
Data privacy and security are paramount.
Right.
Especially when dealing with sensitive financial information.
It's a balancing act, right?
Yeah.
They need to unlock the value of their data without compromising the trust of their clients.
Right.
Or triggering a data privacy nightmare.
Exactly.
How are they approaching this?
Well, they're emphasizing their commitment to responsible data governance and transparency.
Cool.
They've implemented robust security measures and undergo regular third-party audits to ensure they're meeting industry standards.
So they're trying to build that trust by being open about their practices and letting independent experts verify their claims.
Right.
But even with the best intentions, things can still go wrong.
Yeah.
What steps are they taking to mitigate the risks associated with data monetization?
Well, they're being very selective about the data they monetize and the partners they work with. They're also exploring ways to anonymize data and aggregate it at a higher level to minimize privacy concerns.
So it sounds like they're trying to strike a balance between innovation and responsibility.
Right.
Which isn't always easy in the fast-paced tech world. Okay, so we've talked about Iris's strengths, their potential weaknesses, and the evolving threats they face. Now let's shift gears and think about the future. What strategic moves can they make to strengthen their position and navigate this complex landscape?
Well, continuous innovation is essential.
Okay.
They need to constantly push the boundaries of regtech, anticipating future needs and developing solutions that stay ahead of the curve. It's not enough to just keep pace.
Right.
They need to be the ones setting the pace.
They need to be the disruptors, not the disrupted.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And in their annual report, they mentioned expanding into new markets.
Yeah.
That seems like a logical move for growth, but what are the challenges there?
Going global comes with its own complexities.
Okay.
Different countries have different regulations,
Sure.
different business cultures, and sometimes even different languages.
Yeah.
They need to adapt their solutions and their approach to meet the specific needs of each market.
It's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
They need to become global citizens, understanding the nuances of each region they enter.
Exactly. And they've also hinted at exploring strategic partnerships and acquisitions.
Okay.
Partnerships can help them tap into new markets or gain access to specific technologies. Acquisitions can bring in fresh talent and new product lines.
So it's like they're building an arsenal of growth strategies.
Right.
Using different tools for different situations.
Yeah.
And beyond the nuts and bolts of technology and expansion, what about the less tangible stuff? What role does brand and reputation play in their future success?
Yeah, building a strong brand and reputation is crucial, especially in a sector where trust and reliability are paramount.
Okay.
They need to consistently deliver on their promises, exceeding customer expectations, and building a reputation for quality, innovation, and integrity.
So it's not just about what they do, but how they do it, that makes sense. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, but I want to take a step back and think about the bigger picture. What does the future hold for Iris and the regtech sector as a whole? What are the trends that will shape this space in the years to come?
Well, one thing is for sure, regulations are not going away. If anything, they're becoming more complex, especially in areas like data privacy, cybersecurity, and environmental sustainability.
It's like the world is becoming more regulated, not less.
Yeah.
And that creates more opportunities for companies like Iris, right?
Absolutely. This growing complexity creates a huge demand for regtech solutions.
Okay.
Companies need help navigating this regulatory maze, and they're increasingly turning to technology for answers.
So the regtech market is likely to keep growing, but what about the technologies themselves? How will those evolve and impact the sector?
We're seeing a convergence of different technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, and cloud computing.
Yeah, those are some big, exciting buzzwords.
Yeah.
But how do those translate into real-world applications in the regtech space?
For example, AI can be used to automate tasks, analyze vast amounts of data, and identify patterns that humans might miss.
Okay.
Blockchain can create secure and transparent audit trails,
Gotcha.
reducing the risk of fraud and manipulation.
Right.
And cloud computing allows for scalable and flexible solutions that can be accessed from anywhere.
So it's not just about using these technologies individually, it's about combining them in innovative ways to create even more powerful solutions.
Exactly.
And for Iris, this means they need to be at the forefront of these advancements, right?
Exactly. They can't afford to fall behind.
Yeah.
They need to embrace these technologies, integrate them into their solutions, and find creative ways to leverage them to create even more value for their clients.
It's like they need to be master chefs, taking these cutting-edge ingredients and whipping up culinary masterpieces of regulatory compliant. Okay, so we've got this exciting but potentially chaotic future ahead where technologies are converging, regulations are multiplying, and the competitive landscape is constantly shifting. What should our listeners, whether they're investors or simply interested in the future of technology, be paying attention to? What questions should they be asking themselves?
I think the key is to look beyond the hype and focus on the fundamentals.
Okay.
Does the company have a solid business model, a strong track record, and a capable management team?
Those are always good starting points.
Right.
But in the tech world, you also need to consider the pace of innovation and the company's ability to adapt, right?
Absolutely. Is the company investing in R&D, or are they embracing new technologies and finding creative ways to solve emerging challenges? Are they agile enough to pivot when necessary?
Because clinging to outdated approaches can be a recipe for disaster in this fast-paced environment.
Exactly. And beyond the business aspects, we also need to consider the ethical implications of these technologies. As regtech becomes more sophisticated and data plays an even greater role, we need to ask ourselves, how can we ensure that these technologies are used responsibly and ethically?
It's a question we should be asking about all technologies, not just regtech.
Right.
How do we balance innovation with responsibility?
Precisely. And it's not just up to the companies. It's a conversation we all need to be having as a society. What kind of future do we want to create with these powerful tools?
Those are some big, important questions, and I think our deep dive into Iris has given us a lot to think about, both in terms of the company's specific prospects and the broader trends shaping the regtech sector. Before we wrap up, are there any final thoughts or insights you'd like to share?
Well, I think a really interesting aspect that we haven't touched on yet is Iris's commitment to ESG.
ESG, environmental, social, and governance.
Exactly. Those factors that are becoming increasingly important for investors and, for society as a whole.
Yeah, it's not just about profits anymore.
Right.
It's about building sustainable and responsible businesses that create value for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. And Iris seems to be aware of this shift. at least based on their annual report.
Yeah, they definitely highlight their focus on ethical business practices, data privacy, and good governance.
And they even have a detailed risk management system in place.
Oh, right.
Covering various management and functional levels as well as project areas.
They're really trying to be thorough.
Yeah. And it's not just lip service. They're also addressing data security risks head-on, which is crucial given their data-centric business model.
For sure. It's good to see they've implemented measures to enhance data security and confidentiality, ensuring strong protection and privacy for their users.
And it's great to see that they're not just making promises, they're backing them up with action. They regularly subject their systems to third-party audits, demonstrating a commitment to transparency and accountability.
That's a really positive sign. It shows they're serious about building a culture of compliance and ethical behavior.
And they're not just focused on internal ESG factors. They're also thinking about the broader impact of their work.
Absolutely. They highlight how their solutions can help regulators promote financial stability and protect depositors, which ultimately benefits society as a whole.
So they're not just building a successful business, they're contributing to a more stable and transparent financial system. It's like they're using their tech expertise to make the world a slightly better place.
I like that way of putting it, but it's important to remember that no company is perfect, and Iris still has room to grow when it comes to ESG performance.
Go first.
It's an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. Investors and stakeholders should continue to engage with Iris, encouraging them to enhance their ESG disclosures, set ambitious sustainability targets, and demonstrate their commitment to continuous improvement in these areas.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, examining their business model, financials, management valuation, competitive advantages, potential risks, and even their ESG performance. It's been quite a comprehensive analysis.
Yeah, we've dissected their collect, create, consume model, scrutinized their management, and even tried to size up their moats. Hopefully our listeners feel like they've gotten a real 360-degree view of Iris Business Services Limited.
I agree. And while we can't predict the future, I think our discussion has highlighted both the opportunities and the challenges that lie ahead for Iris and for the regtech sector as a whole.
We've seen that Iris is a pioneer in the regtech space. They're financially sound, and they're led by a management team with a long-term vision. But the tech landscape is constantly evolving, and new challenges and opportunities are emerging all the time.
Right. Will Iris be able to maintain its agility and adaptability, embracing new technologies and evolving its business model to thrive in this dynamic environment? Or will they become a victim of disruption, clinging to outdated approaches and falling behind the competition?
That's the million-dollar question. And while we don't have a crystal ball, I think our deep dive has equipped our listeners with the knowledge and insights they need to make their own informed judgments about Iris and the future of regtech.
Well said. By paying attention to the trends we've discussed, by asking tough questions, and by continuing to learn and explore, our listeners can stay ahead of the curve and make informed decisions about the future, whether they're investors, entrepreneurs, or simply curious about the world around them.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Iris Business Services Limited. We hope you enjoyed the journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.